I'll actually answer that question that the Conservatives asked about having quorum in the House and it being in the Constitution. The unfortunate reality for the Conservative member who asked the question is that he should know that he has participated in unanimous consent motions in this House to waive that provision in the past. He has already set the precedent himself, so has the Conservative Party, and as a matter of fact, so has every single person in this House has set the precedent to waive the requirements for quorum. So you can't be selective as to when you want to interpret the Constitution to your benefit, which is what the Conservatives are trying to do now. The reality is that there's been a long-standing precedent that has been set to waive the requirement for quorum under certain conditions, and that's exactly what we're seeing in this motion, the same consistency that comes with that. But, you know, Madam Speaker, I think what we really have to do with regards to this motion is get to the heart of what's going on, and that the heart of what's going on here is the Conservatives' interest, the Conservatives' partisan interest, and allowing that to supersede the needs of Canadians. That is exactly what is going on here, and I will demonstrate that in my speech today, Madam Speaker, how they have routinely done that, not over the last 7 years of me being in this House and watching it, although they've done it over the last 7 years. I'm going to demonstrate 5 examples just in this fall session alone where they've done that. And they've done it on multiple occasions using multiple different tools. We all know, any individual that has participated in or is well versed in how the Westminster parliamentary system works, we all know that the one tool that the opposition has is to delay. That is their sole tool. And it's important for the opposition to exercise that use of that tool when they can in order to garner support or whatever it might be, when they find those issues to be so important that they feel this is the hill we will die on, we will fight and delay, we will filibuster that we have to because we don't feel this is right. That's the main tool that opposition parties have in a parliamentary system like this. The problem is, Madam Speaker, Conservatives are using it all the time. They're using that tool for everything. For absolutely every piece of legislation that comes before this House, they are saying, this is the hill that we will die on. And the problem is that, number one, it diminishes the value of that tool that they have. But number two is it affects directly, and this is what I don't understand, it affects directly their credibility on this issue. When they stand up and delay things that they are fully in support of, do they not understand that the public sees that and the public says, you're just doing the same thing. Your interest, your partisan interest, your interest in seeing a government fail is more important to me, this is them saying that, is more important to them than actually providing supports for Canadians. So let's review some of the legislation this fall alone. Bill C-29, the Truth and Reconciliation bill, Madam Speaker. The Conservative Party blocked a motion to sit late to try to pass the bill at second reading before Truth and Reconciliation Day, which is what the government and I think all Canadians would have loved to have seen. It wasn't only until pressure was mounted on them by the public that they backed down from that position. Another one, Bill C-30, the GST tax credit. This is a bill that actually provided and needed to be passed in a timely fashion to get real supports to Canadians. Real, actual supports to Canadians that needed to be done in a timely fashion to line up with when the GST payments were made. The Conservatives, again, blocked a motion to sit late on the second reading of that important piece of legislation. They only backed down again and changed their mind on how they would vote on that particular piece of legislation based on public criticism and the public holding them accountable for playing the games that they're playing. And that's the reality of what we're seeing. Bill C-31, the bill that afforded very important measures regarding dental care and housing supports. The Conservative Party, again, blocked the adoption of the legislation to help the most vulnerable, forcing the government, with the help of the NDP, to have a programming motion to get it passed. And this is what we see time after time after time. Bill C-9, the Judges Act. And I will remind members, this is all just in this fall session alone. When technical issues with interpretation, you know, the party that's always standing up and using interpreters as you know, one of their arguments for making sure that we have the best quality of debate in this House. When there was a problem with interpretations and there was a delay on the debate of the bill, the Conservatives refused to support a motion to add time to the debate that day. They say that they want more time to debate, and literally we said, okay, we lost 30 minutes of time because of a problem and we had to suspend temporarily. How about we add that 30 minutes on to the end of the day? And they said no. They don't want to do it. Like, this is the party, this is the group that is now sitting before us saying that they are in favor of doing absolutely everything to increase democracy and speak, and they want to have more and more speakers on every issue. But of course, the one glaring example of this happening in this fall session is with Bill S5. This is the bill on environmental protections, a bill which everybody in this House supported. It was unanimously adopted. Conservatives put up 27 speakers on it. Now, I just want to create a comparison for those that might be watching. In comparison to that, Liberals put up 6 speakers, the NDP put up 4, the Bloc put up 5, and the Green Party put up 1. And what's even more telling, Madam Speaker, if you go back and you look at Hansard or you go back and you watch the videos.
We have a point of order. The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it is rather ironic that we're here debating a motion that is going to limit much of our capacity here and the lack of quorum. And yet I sit here looking in this chamber and I believe we do not have quorum.
I would just ask the honourable member, if she's raising a point on quorum, she needs to raise that point and not do part of the debate. So I will double check to see if we have quorum. Mais ça veut dire regarder en ligne aussi? Okay, we currently have quorum in the House. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary has 3.5 minutes to continue.
It's absolutely remarkable, Madam Speaker, that they proved my point during my speech. You know, what do the Conservatives do? They play this game, they play these games where suddenly they all leave the room and then pull a quorum call. I'm not referencing any particular member, but I can tell you that there was probably about 20 or 30 Conservatives sitting here when I began my speech, and then right now that number significantly reduced, right? Now they're going to tell you that they don't want to hear me speak, and that's fair enough, but we all know what they're up to. They're up to these games of playing to try to prevent the business of this House from occurring, and we see it routinely. But as I get back to Bill S5, a bill that absolutely everybody in this House ended up voting in favor of, the Conservatives, what did they do? They didn't even speak to the motion, the bill when it was on the floor. Go back and look at Hansard. Go back and watch the videos. They spoke about just about everything except Bill S5. Why, Madam Speaker? Because there was nothing to be critical on it.
The honourable member for Brockville?
Brantford Brant. I'd love the line to be called Brock. We don't have quorum.
Member is calling for quorum. I'll just double check with the clerks. We do have quorum in the House right now. At the moment, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader. There's 2.5 minutes left.
You can see what happens. The member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lake, my neighbour, is orchestrating all this right now, standing right behind the door there, orchestrating it.
The honourable member cannot indicate who's in the House and who's not in the House. Again, the honourable member cannot claim who's in the House and who's not in the House. And when I have this, when I'm speaking, the honourable member should not be interrupting me. So the honourable. Another point of order. The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it is absolutely shameful that not only did the member think that it was appropriate to mention who may have been or not in the House, but also to impute false motives on members.
Debate. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands is rising on the point of order.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, with
if it's a debate or not, I haven't heard the point of order yet, so I would ask members to hold off to their thoughts. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
The back row looks great on that minister, Madam Speaker, but I'd say that with respect to the point of order raised by the member for Kingston and the Islands, simply, my role at that time was what?
Again, I actually ruled the point of order out of order, and I did indicate that the honourable, I don't know if I ruled it out of order, but I did indicate that he's not to indicate who's in the House and who's not in the House, and therefore I'm going to allow the debate to continue, because what the honourable member wants to do is raise a point of debate and not a point of order. The honourable member for Leeds, the honourable parliamentary secretary now has 2 minutes and 15 seconds left.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I don't think we need to I don't even really need to say much more, other than for people who are watching at home to have witnessed what just happened in this House. You are seeing firsthand, right in your TV screens, wherever you happen to be watching this, the games that Conservatives will play. And guess what? The Bloc Québécois is right there with them playing these games too. So if anybody in this House really needs a reason as to why we need this motion that we are going to vote on later this evening, you look no further than the games that Conservatives are playing right while I'm speaking. With the Bloc. That's the reality of the situation. Now, they can laugh and they can chuckle and they can give me the thumbs up like they're doing, okay? But I think it's very clear about what's going on. So, Madam Speaker, I come back to where I started with this, and that's at this obtuse idea that the Conservatives are somehow trying to suggest that there is less democracy as a result of sitting late. I'm sorry. If Conservatives thought when they got elected that this was a 9-to-5 job, they have been mistaken. I would encourage, my time up?
There's still 1 minute, but there seems to be some discussions going back and forth, I believe, and I don't have my speakers on, and I know that the honourable member has a boisterous voice, and I'm still having a hard time. I can still hear the heckling going on or the discussions going on. So I want to remind members, if they want to have conversations, they should take them outside. If they want to heckle, I would ask them to wait until it's time for questions and comments, and they'll have a better opportunity to be heard at that time. The honourable parliamentary secretary has 1 minute to finish up his speech before we get to the interesting part of the questions and comments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was just going to conclude by saying, if Conservatives thought when they got elected that this was a 9-to-5 job, they're mistaken. I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities out there for them to have a 9-to-5 job and to contribute to society in a way other than being in this House, and perhaps they want to explore those opportunities. But the reality of the situation is, Madam Speaker, is democracy doesn't end at 5 o'clock. This is not a 9-to-5 job, and we have to be prepared to work later into the evening when it's going to directly be a benefit for and to Canadians, which is the reality of a lot of the measures that have been brought forward this fall alone that the Conservatives have routinely held up. So I look forward to hoping that my Bloc friends who sometimes can see the light can come around on this issue, see the importance of this, and vote in favor of it, because I know that this is what Canadians and Quebecers are expecting of them.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to correct the record of the parliamentary secretary, because he said a number of things that are not true. First of all, I'm certainly a hardworking individual, and I don't mind working as many hours as is needed to get the job done. Now, he did say that the opposition has only one tool, and that is delay when there is a bill that they feel is not going to be good for Canada. And there's just so many terrible pieces of legislation being brought forward. But I would point out that we are not obstructing, and that in fact on C30 we voted to move it quickly to committee. On the conversion therapy, we voted to move that right through first, second, and third reading. And on the Truth and Reconciliation, I think it's really rich that, when the Prime Minister goes surfing on Truth and Reconciliation Day, that they could say that we're trying to be obstructionist. Would the member agree that he needs to correct the record?
Yes. The honourable parliamentary secretary.
So, Madam Speaker, if I was to take the member's word at what she's saying and that they're genuinely only using that delay tool for the purpose of bills that they're in opposition to, she would have to then explain to me why they delayed S5 and ultimately forced the government to continue to put more and more days on so that they could come forward and speak to S5 and never even scratch the surface of talking about the bill. So, you know, if the member wants to find one or two bills that they happen to move along a little quicker, you know, to try to somehow justify their actions, it certainly doesn't sit well with those who are watching this and looking at it holistically and realizing that this is what they've been doing routinely, which is delay, 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 delay.
Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Drummond.
Questions and comments. The honourable member from Drummond. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This has been really amusing. It was very amusing when this side of the House emptied. And so we see that this is what we need to do to get Liberals to come to work. We just need to have a quorum call. That said, Madam Speaker, I find it insulting that it's been suggested that the Bloc doesn't want to work hard. We work very hard. We represent our constituents, and in whatever way necessary, if the sittings are extended to midnight, we will be here, and we will be here in person. And we challenge the Liberals to also be here in person, Madam Speaker. Now, here's my question for the Parliamentary Secretary. Now, let's say it's justified to extend sittings. Well, why are they being extended all the way through to the end of the spring session? Why isn't this being... Why does this have to be done for February, March, April, May? And I'd like to have a logical answer to that question.
The member finds anything to be insulting, Madam Speaker. What I find insulting, quite frankly, is that when we're trying to participate in debate, the reason why we come to this House to represent Canadians, that Conservatives and the Bloc, by his own admission that he just said moments ago, decide it's funny to stand up, walk out of the room in order to force a quorum call. Is that why he thinks that people elected him to come here, to play little games like that and to skirt around procedural rules? Does he really think that that's what his purpose in this House is?
Questions et commentaires. We have time for
Questions and comments.
the honourable member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the subject of quorum calls, I was troubled to find the other night when there was a quorum call and it was clear that there were members in the lobby who didn't come out. I looked at the standing orders, and we have no standing order that requires a member of Parliament within a few steps of the chamber to show up when there's a quorum call. I wonder if the honourable member would agree with me that PROC should have a look at this and see whether we should add to our standing orders that when there's a quorum call, the assumption when those rules were written was that any member who was ambulatory would get in and get to their seat, because there was a stronger sense of duty in those days. I wonder if we should have PROC look at it.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
I think we should be certainly looking at this issue, and I think it's also important to reflect on the fact that Conservatives aren't just doing it to Liberals, they're doing it to the Green member too. I was here that night when they did the exact same thing to her in the middle of her speech. So, I mean, should we look at a way to try to resolve this issue? Yeah, I think we should. Or we could just expect everybody to be adults and not play those games.